Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, and it is now a course at NYU and an elective towards the journalism certificate. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. And follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Welcome to this episode of Freelance Writing Direct, and I am so delighted to have Amy Collins with us today. Amy is an agent with Talcott Notch Literary Services. She represents many authors who have signed deals with major publishers and focuses on audio and book-to-film as well. Amy speaks and teaches on market viability and sales potential for authors and is currently traveling the country with her 2 dogs, meeting with editors and authors. She can be found on Threads, Instagram, and Twitter at Ask Amy Collins and online at www.amysadvice.com. And it's such a pleasure to have her here with us today.
Oh, thank you. You know what a fan I am, and I'm so grateful that you have me here.
We met at the Writer's Digest conference in the summer. We were both speaking, and I think it was the wonderful Bob Eckstein who introduced us to each other. And you also teach for Writer's Digest. So we're going to get into all of that. But I know you teach classes on comp titles, querying, and creating great proposals.
Yeah, I teach for Writer's Digest and for agents helping authors. And there's just, if it has to do with the business side, I teach it. I don't teach on editorial or craft. I teach on the business and marketing and querying side.
Perfect. So you're an agent with Talcott Notch. Can you talk a little bit about your role there as an agent and what it is that you do?
Yes. For the last 4 years, I've been a literary agent after 25 or more years. I'm embarrassed to say how many more years in the industry as a sales and marketing person for big houses. And I started as a book buyer for a bookstore chain in upstate New York. And so for the last 4 years, I have shifted in what I'm hoping is the last part of my career to a job where I take all of my many years experience in the marketplace and my years paying attention to what readers are doing, and because things change so fast in our industry, and I'm constantly trying to match books and authors that I find that seem to be supplying to readers and to the marketplace what they're looking for, and then I introduce their books to publishers so that hopefully we can get them out to the readers. My job is to match up readers with my clients' books through the publishers.
I love that. And are there specific genres that you're really focused on, that you really want to cover?
Most agents, when they get started, they tend to veer towards the genres that they read. So when I got started, I did a lot of sci-fi and fantasy because I love sci-fi and fantasy. That's my thing. I also did a lot of historical fiction. I'm reading a book right now about a 13th century pope. I'm really into biographies and history, and I love historical fiction, true historical fiction, not the Duke, kidnaps the heiress historical, but real historical fiction. Ken Follett's, that sort of, Patrick Rutherford, Bernard Cornwell. But I pay attention to the marketplace, and what's selling is romantasy, romance books, dark romance retelling with consent. Big fan of consent, but Romance, which truthfully, until the last few years, was not a part of my daily fare. I was not a romance reader, but oh my God, I love them. I love the way that they allow people just to escape. I love the money it makes my clients. I love everything about it. So I focus right now on fantasy, sci-fi, romance, romantasy, horror. I'm doing a lot with horror. Although, as I say, I don't always read, I'm not always an avid reader. I'm becoming an avid reader, which is giving me such bizarre nightmares. So some of my clients have branched into horror, so I'm doing that. And then on the nonfiction side, I do cookbooks. I do a lot with pop culture. Somehow, a childless woman deep in her 50s has become the Sesame Street agent. I've got a whole bunch of clients that work for Sesame Street. And so that's my jam. And I think this would happen. I think a lot of agents would tell you this. Their jam becomes what life hands them. It's not always a straight line.
So I did a little deep dive into what you had recently sold on Publishers Marketplace, which is one of my Estelle's Edge for my students. If they're looking into getting an agent or selling a book, go to Publishers Marketplace and look at the agents that you're interested in representing you and see what they've sold recently. So I'm going to just paraphrase, but you've made quite a few sales, a lot, and you sold Doctor Who. And also, by the way, there was another Amy Collins who sold books. And so I had to specifically look for Amy A. Collins. So people are looking up. Yes.
Yes, which I will tell you, I don't have a middle name. Yet when I joined Publishers Marketplace and there was Amy Collins at Squid Ink, another agent, I had to make up a middle name, even though I don't have one.
Yeah, because otherwise somebody would just, and I started looking and I'm like, well, I don't see any fantasy books with this Amy Collins. So I did a little deeper of a dive and there you go, there you are. So Doctor Who by Graham Gibson, you sold that to Rowan and Littlefield in a nice deal for publication. And that's a look at the history of the Doctor Who television show. So there's your pop culture. And you also did journalist and author of Street Gang, The Complete History of Sesame Street, Michael Davis's Street Fight. And so it went into the most successful children's television show in history and how it shaped generations. And that was to a university press, Rutgers University Press. And then into your fantasy realm, The Garden Witch by Lloyd Meeker. I love that title, by the way, and I love anything about witches, in which a witch who holds no status, cannot keep a position, cannot hold her tongue, and has none of the magical power that comes with having her own book of seasons, is desperate to save her aunt and inadvertently upsets a political coup, triggers an environmental crisis, and defies centuries of prejudice to serve the balance of nature. Wow. And that's to a nice deal by Ashley Hutchinson at Lost Boys. And so you really, and then we have some more, an untitled author of The Beasts of Gadamora. So there's your fantasy. And then you go a little deeper and it's fantasy, it's politics, it's current affairs, it's graphic novels. It's all the stuff, all the good, juicy stuff that you're talking about. And what I like is that you are prolific in your selling. You're not somebody, and people will find if they go to Publishers Marketplace and maybe they've met an agent at a conference who's been speaking like you do, but the agent last sold something in 2015. It does happen. And I have warned several of my students against that because that is an agent who might be on the circuit, but they're not selling, or they're not selling in a public way. And of course, you want to be selling in a public way so that your peers and also the people who are interested in working with you can see. So you are prolific, and that is one of my marks for somebody on the program. So thank you for all you do for writers, Amy. And let's get into it. Like, is there a genre that you don't cover?
Memoir. I
Oh,
have to tell you, memoir's tough for me. So I have never sold a memoir. That's not true. That's not true. My first year, Steve Majors, High Yella, I did an audio deal for him. Gina, who is the head of our agency, Gina Panteri, he was her client, and I do a lot of audio for my agency if we still have the audio rights. Memoir is kind of off my list at the moment.
Okay. And that's understandable because wouldn't somebody need to have a pretty big platform as well for Memoir? I know there's people who have so many sad stories and tales of redemption, but I guess the bar is getting higher and higher, would you say?
That is true. But there's two different things to keep in mind. With Memoir, either you need a large platform because your story is in demand and people want to read more of it. They've either seen you in the news or seen you on stage somewhere or at a conference. So your story is already in demand, or nobody knows who you are. You have no platform, but your writing is so beautiful, so lyrical, so well done that every page is like a meal. I know a number of very, very popular memoirs now where they had no platform, but the writing was so beautiful that it was like reading a literary work. It just happened to be their story. And so you don't always need a platform, but if you don't have a platform, you have to have the kind of talent that comes along once or twice in a decade.
Can you say who that memoirist is?
Well, I don't want to get in trouble, but I will tell you that there's a reason why Crying at H Mart is doing so well right now. Her story is compelling and it's powerful, and at times, oh my gosh, it just hurts. But I would say that the writing is absolutely gorgeous, and that lifted that book out of the many other memoirs it could have been.
Okay. I need to read that one. I haven't read that one yet. For you, what are some of the most successful books that you've published for the author and their continued career?
I have a deal that's not on Publishers Marketplace yet, but I'm happy to talk about because it's the ink is dry on the contract. But Stacy McEwen, I was flipping through TikTok 3, 4 years ago, just scrolling. TikTok was real new, and I was bored. And I stumbled across Stace Bookspace. She was doing book reviews, and she was very funny. And I slid into her DMs, as the kids say, and I asked her, if she'd ever thought of writing a book. She was writing a book, and she sent me the manuscript. She became one of my first clients 3 years ago. She's with Angry Robot right now, and I saw she has a 3-book deal with Angry Robot, distributed by Random House, and the Ledge series, very successful. I will tell you, she was able to quit her job based on, in the last 3 years, she went from, a very, very funny TikToker with a strong following, but matched with talent, with a romantasy series that we sold 1 book, then we sold the trilogy. The 3rd book is coming out this summer. She's been able to quit her job, and we have a extremely life-changing deal that's going to be announced next month for her. The kind of deal that now her husband can quit his job. And it's publishing is a harsh mistress, but when it lands well, it's so exciting. When they react to an author, I just love it.
Congratulations to her. And I saw on your website, which I really like, that you highlight the authors that you work with. You put their photo and their bio and links to their website. And that's really generous and wonderful to show that.
Well, I want a couple of things. When new authors that I would like to work with are checking me out, I want them to go to my website. I want them to have direct contact with all of my clients so that they can reach out to them. And I think anyone who's thinking of working with an agent, make sure that you speak to some of their clients and see. People will say to me when I want to work with them, well, can you give me the contact information so I can speak with some? Yes, I could, but I'm only going to give you the people who like me. Let's be honest. I said, and I'm happy to do that. But if you want to go to my website, you can click on any of those photos at random and ask them what it's like to work with me, and that you might get a better idea of what I'm like as an agent. So I also do it not just to support my clients whom I love, but also to keep me honest.
That's wonderful. And so there are many different types of agents, right? Like there are some agents that they really just want to make it a business. They will represent you, they will negotiate for you, but they're not going to be the person that you're going to call at midnight and vent to. You have people, you have friends, you have family for that. And then there are some who want to be that person that you vent to, that want to be the hand holders for their authors. Which category do you fit into, Amy?
I am definitely a hand holder if they want it. With the help of one of my clients who brought me into the Discord world, I didn't know Discord, but one of my clients helped me set up a Discord group, and all of my clients are in it. And they ask questions of me and each other, and they get to know each other. We have Zoom parties together where they all get to support each other and like each other. However, they also have on that server a Discord group that I'm not invited to, where they can talk about me and about me if they want to. I believe in 360-degree relationships. Well, I mean, I may be asleep at midnight, but when one of my clients is upset because the index is broken, or one of my clients' books, they put the wrong photographer's name on the back cover. I mean, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal to us, but it is a big deal to the photographer, to the author. I want to be the first call. I don't want them to feel alone. My job is to help them with their career. Now, some of them don't want that, and that's fine. Most of the agents I know would want to be your first phone call if something's wrong.
And you answered my other question, which was, are you a one-off book agent, or do you want to be there for the life of the writer's career? Not all agents want that. They're like, I'm interested in this book, but I'm not in that one. Or some don't cover nonfiction as well as fiction. Some are strictly fiction or nonfiction agents.
I do have a couple of clients who already had fiction agents, but they had some nonfiction projects, but their fiction agent didn't represent nonfiction. I get on the phone with that agent because you got to be careful. I don't want their fiction business, but if they need a nonfiction agent, I do have a few clients that's what I do. I don't represent them. But here's my theory. I do not sign a book. I sign a client. There's only so many spots. There's only so many beds in the dormitory. And I can't give up one of those beds for an author that's only got one book. I mean, that's not good for my career. That's not good for my agency. Other agents can do that, and that's great. That's not a great fit for me. That being said, if one of my clients writes a book that I truly don't believe I can sell, they are welcome to self-publish it. I'll even help them. They're welcome to go to another agent with it. I will make introductions. So, for instance, Memoir, I'll give it a try, but if I don't do a great job, I don't have those editorial contacts, I will happily help you elsewhere.
Is there a topic that maybe you haven't seen come across your desk, but you would love to represent?
I'd like to represent more of the things that I read. And so to find an author, kind of like Glennon Doyle, Brene Brown, someone with heart, soul, spirit, who's really lifting and lightening the hearts, the minds of mainly women, but also women and men in this world with warm, witty, true books. I don't have a lot of people coming at me with that. I would love to be a part of lightening some of the hearts of readers. I've got a lot of dragons in my dormitory right now, and Muppets, a lot of Sesame Street Muppets. But it would be nice to get something more like Anne Lamott. I've got someone who's close. Her name is Devery Donaldson. She wrote a book called You're Going to Die Alone and Other Excellent News that came out from Blackstone last fall. And it's a series of essays that absolutely does that. And it's doing very well, and I'm very proud of it. But what I mean by someone more like Glennon Doyle or Anne Lamott, someone where the topics are a little bit more, now You're Going to Die Alone and Other Excellent News is strong and feminist and empowering and fantastic. But I'm an older woman. I'd love to get some books by I hate to say it, but our industry is not ageist, but it does tend to lean a little bit, it's a little easier for the shiny haired 30-year-olds. And it would be awfully nice to get some not so shiny haired 60-year-olds writing their uplifting stories. Does that make sense?
It does. And I love that. And as somebody who spent 3 decades in publishing, I totally relate. And, part of my mission is to uplift women and their vision and their words into the world from the other side as an editor, as a writing coach. So I love that. So can you give us some ground rules on pitching you and also pitching agents in general? What do you look for? What's the basic needs that you have and that a writer should know to do? And of course, you do help guide that in your classes for Writer's Digest and the other places that you teach.
I do teach those, but in those classes, I'll tell you what I tell them. Every agent is different. If you've
Yeah.
met one agent, you've met one agent. And I know how frustrating it is for authors, for writers. I get it. I'm so sorry. But I can't fix that. But what I can do is help. And so, yes, I will answer your questions. If you are querying me, query letters, very short. Keep it brief. Very, very brief. Truthfully, I only read about half of them. I just need to make sure that you're not pitching me either a, breast cancer memoir or something that I just don't represent. But the minute I find out that you're representing something in a genre I'd be interested in, I hop right to the sample pages. I use Query Tracker. And I ask people to, when they query me, to go to queryamy.com, which takes them right to my query page. I do not take queries via email, just because I have an inbox zero policy every day, and I wouldn't be able to achieve that if you were querying me. So you go to Query Tracker, I jump right to the pages. For me, it's all about the writing. So I don't need a 47-page query letter. Thank you, I'm good. Now, if you put a proposal together and I love the writing, I'm going to hop to the proposal. I want to see your comp titles. I want to see that you know something about the industry, and that the main thing I'm interested in is, are you a member of the writing community? Are you actively involved in your community? Are you connected to other authors? Are you reaching out to fellow readers or not? Because that's a big red flag for me. For me, I look for good writing. I stop reading after a page or two and I start looking at you. And if I start reading and I really like it and I look at you and you are in some ways connected to the industry, you're either working on craft, you're mentioning something, books that you've read on craft, or I will go right back to reading. I'm very happy. But when I ask people for comp titles and I hear and here's some red flags for me. There are no other books like mine. Well, there are. There always are. Even if you've written a cookbook for dachshunds who want to be vegan, it's out there. There's already vegan dachshund cookbooks, I promise. And comp titles are not books like yours. Comp titles tell me that you understand who your readership is. What books are your potential readers already reading? And if you don't know that, that's a lot of lifting for me. That means you're not even willing to pick up your side of the couch. I mean, I'll even pick up the side of the couch that's got the Barca Lounger in it. I'll pick up the heavy side, but you've got to pick up your side. You have to show me that you're connected to other authors, you're connected to other readers. If you're not, if you've written this book in a vacuum, I'm probably not the right agent for you.
What I love that you pointed out, Amy, is that it's very subjective. You actually offer on your website a link to an article on how to find comp titles. I wanted to ask you, where do you see yourself as really valuable in that negotiation time? That time when when it's hit the metal and there's a publisher who's interested, and it's like, okay, what are your terms? And then what can I do for my client? How does that work for you?
I have had clients who have negotiated their own deals before I met them, and then I have negotiated deals for them after. So I have very specific data on how I can be of help. For one thing, I can get them a lot more money in terms of royalties. Advances, as many of you know, advances are just a loan against future royalties. And yes, it's very nice to get a big advance, but in most cases, advances are getting smaller. Publishing houses are being focused more and more on the accounting side of things. And there's not as many large advances happening. What I can do is get your royalties up. Instead of a 7.5% net royalty, I will negotiate up to, we can get escalators, we can start at 10%. The industry right now, you need to base your royalty on the retail price of the book, not on your profits. The other thing I can do that helps is negotiating and getting marketing support and some of the non-financial elements that will greatly increase the success of your book into the contract. And I will always want that. I will always push for that.
What would some examples of that be?
That there will be a certain amount of money, budget set aside for external PR companies, that there will be a certain number of printed advance copies, and that the mailing budget and the postage will be the following, that there will be, that they will have their own assigned exclusive PR or marketing, depending on how big the house is. Now, when I'm working with Angry Robot, I don't put that in the contract for two reasons. Their marketing is so fantastic, I don't need to. And Watkins is small. They can't give me one person. That's not how it works. As an agent, I can negotiate marketing. I can negotiate a better royalty. Yes, I can negotiate a better advance, but it's what I also can catch for them. I can get, no, you can't have film rights. No, you're not paying. Your advances are not big enough for that. I'm taking those back. Thank you. Oh, you want second? No. If you were giving a bigger advance, I'd be happy to give you the abridged audio rights, but no. So or right of first refusal. They have the right of first refusal for the next book. No, you have the right to take, how about an exclusive first look and 30 days to tell me if you want it or not. These are things that without an agent, an author might agree to. That if the advance is big enough and if the deal is big enough, I am happy to give it. But in this day and age where advances are getting smaller, which I understand, so too then will be the amount that you can buy with your advance. There's quid pro quo. And if I was an author without an agent, I might not know what I'm allowed to ask for. And I might be too nervous to do it, because what if I lose the deal? These editors are old friends of mine at this point. I mean, and even if they're not, if they're new friends of mine, we are co-professionals and we understand the language, and there's no emotion in it for me. I love my clients, but that doesn't mean that I get emotional when I'm negotiating. Another thing that I know other agents will tell you, and I'm not alone in this, I can't ask for anything for myself. I'm so bad at it. I have a hard time asking people to pass the salt at dinner. But for my clients, I will draw a flaming sword and go, I mean, I will do anything and ask for anything on their behalf. So I think that's human nature.
Yes, I love that you said that it's hard for you to ask for something for yourself, but you will draw that flaming sword and run into battle for your clients, because really that's what everyone wants, someone to have their back and someone to be there to support them. So you're writing in your bio, Amy is currently working while traveling and living in a spacious motorhome with 2 dogs and a husband, living life to the fullest. Is this some sort of odyssey? Is it going to result in a book? What's this about? Can you talk to it?
COVID hit, and I didn't want to be in we had a small house in a very crowded New York City, and the world was closing in on us. And we closed our house up and we bought a bus. I'm living in a 40-foot tour bus right now. That's what's behind me. And we hit the road, and we loved it so much that after 2 years, we sold our house. And I am at the moment sitting on the Sea of Cortez on a beach in Mexico, where I'm spending my winter. And this summer, I'm going to spend it up in Montana. I'm going to spend the fall in the Pacific Northwest. It's not a short-term odyssey. It's become my life. I just travel.
Wow, that's amazing.
And no, it will never be a book because I can't write. I don't, I know I've written a couple books. If you guys Google me, you'll see I've got a couple books, some traditionally published, one self-published, but it's not my thing. I prefer to work with authors. I respect their talent too much to ever try and write a book again.
I really think that's fascinating. It really adds to your depth and breadth of life experience, I think. So is there anything that I didn't cover and that we didn't talk about that you want to share?
There is. On social media, there has been, at least in my feed, a growing level of dissatisfaction that agents ask for so much, that the publishing world asks for so much from writers. There was a lovely agent. She's a new agent. She's kind of young. She was misquoted on Twitter as somebody quoted her as saying that if you didn't have a website, she wouldn't even look at you, which is not what she said, but oh, Twitter went crazy. But the growing dissatisfaction on social media that publishing, and those of us who represent publishing, are asking too much of authors outside of the fact that they've written a book is not okay with me. I was a full-time musician for many years. I'm classically trained opera singer. I am a singer-songwriter. I know people in my life. I am related to professional ball players. No other art that I know of, no other practitioner of art in any way that wants to become professional in it says to themselves, well, I take pretty pictures. That's all that should be expected of me. Or I can really pitch a fastball like crazy. No, they are training. They are getting coaches. They are going to the camps. They are building, and if they're a photographer, they're building their portfolio. They are out there. They are working the business side. And I'm simply going to say that I know a lot of very, very talented writers. But the difference between a talented writer and a successful writer is a writer that does more than just write. What separates them almost always is a willingness to invest in your craft, a willingness to invest in this as a business. And I get very, very frustrated when people find that to be too heavy of an ask, too heavy of a lift. You need to lift your side of the couch. And with that, I'm done.
I'm with you, Amy, and thank you for pointing that out and bringing it up. I always say it's about building your craft. And with that, you can continue to build your business. So, Amy, thank you so much for speaking with us today. I love your passion for the business, your passion for good writing, and your passion for working with talented and adept writers. Thank you so much, Amy.
Follow me at EstelleSErasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.